Welcome to today's conversation. Today, we are talking about the fear of being seen and getting yourself out there in a bigger way. If you are someone that knows that you are here to bring a message into the world, you're here to be in the spotlight, you are here for more, but for whatever reason, you find yourself in this dance of shining bright and then contracting, or you're in a pattern of not fully showing up as the truth of who you are and who you're meant to be, and you know that you are meant to bring a message or a shift into the world, then this episode is for you. Welcome to the show. My name is Deidre Sirianni, and today I want to talk a little bit about what fear actually is and some of the things I do when I've had fear of being seen come up. So a lot of the time when fear comes up around being seen, it usually has to do with something from your past. And we could go back into your past, we could hash it out, we could do all this trauma work, or we could just recognize that you most likely have a patterning or a programming or something that you've learned in your life that has told you it's not safe to fully be who you are. It's not safe to shine. It's not safe to really take up space. And if you're a woman listening to this right now, you can probably relate because there is so much programming around women, around being polite, staying small, staying in your lane. And for me growing up, I grew up in a family that was more male dominated than female. So I had two older brothers and a dad, and I developed a pattern of not fully shining my light in a lot of ways, mainly just from some patterning, some things I picked up in my childhood and also in my adulthood around it's not safe to shine. So I want to share a specific story with you that really impacted me about 5 years ago that could have easily taken me out of the game, easily taken me out of the arena of doing what I do now, which is I speak on this podcast, I speak on shows and podcasts regularly, and I'm also pretty out there when it comes to speaking on stages in person. So about 5 years ago, I ran my very first event and it went well. We had about 60 to 70 people show up live. It was a great success. People had a big transformation. And during this time, during that 6-month period, I also got out of a relationship. I was cheated on. I was devastated. I chopped my hair off, as us ladies do sometimes when we're going through a big transition. And I was really stepping into my goals. I got out of that relationship, was heartbroken, a lot of work I had to do internally. And I did my TEDx on trauma, which was a big edge for me. I shared a very vulnerable story from stage. And then before I moved to Bali, I did my first live event in person and it went so well. But there were specific things that happened from this event that could have and actually did really impact me to play small and not fully shine my light for years. So I want to break it down because most likely, if you have a fear of being seen, it has to do with something most likely that we're going to be talking about today in this episode. So I ran the event, it went well, people had a transformational experience, but some shit hit the fan after the event and it really hurt my feelings. It really knocked me out of the game for a little while and really impacted my self-worth. So I want to share this story with you. So I hired this woman to be the MC at this event, and I thought her and I were friends. Later on, I find out from some good friends of mine that she was talking poorly about me behind my back to people at the event and trying to poach my clients. And most people that were in the audience were clients of mine and in my community and really value and respect my work and are close with me in some way. So the message continued to come back to me that this person was saying not great things about me behind my back, as well as trying to poach my clients. So I approached the MC after the event and said, "Hey, I'm confused. I'm not really sure what's going on. Can we have a conversation about it?" And she basically said I was making things up. She didn't say those things or do those things and that I should get over it and being too sensitive. So for me, as a highly sensitive person, and at the time, someone who was naive and always saw people's best selves, but didn't actually potentially operate from how people were operating in the physical reality, I made it about me. And what do I mean that I made it about me? I made her disrespectful behavior about there must be something wrong with me for someone to treat me that way or for someone to do that. So instead of really owning my power and kind of being like, yeah, not for me, learned a lesson. I internalized it. And it created this feeling of, I'm not enough. Something's wrong with me. Within a couple of weeks after that event, she actually advertised my ex-boyfriend to our conscious community of women, which had hundreds of people in it, as the most eligible bachelor in our city. So not only did she, do all these things at the event that I later found out about and gaslit me about it, I was internalizing that as shame and that I'm not enough and something's wrong with me. She was advertising my ex-boyfriend who cheated on me to our conscious community of women. And I was really hurt. And I was hurt on a level where when I'm hurt, and I don't know if this resonates with you or not, or how you show up, but typically in the past, in my past experiences, when I've been hurt, I internalize and I step back and I contract and I step out of community. I step out of moving forward. And so COVID happened. I moved to Bali at that time, and I was still doing my business and growing my business and all of those things, but I wasn't doing live events. I wasn't hosting my own live events. And of course, COVID happened. I wasn't able to do live events anyways in person. But once COVID was over and when it was time for me to do live events again, I was back in Canada. I started to do a thing. I started to postpone running events. I started to make excuses around, I'm too busy. I don't have enough time. It's not the right timing. And my team member was consistently trying to help me plan these live events for Turn Your Light On, which was the 3-day signature event, and some other events that I have. And I kept postponing and getting in my own way. And then my team member and I had a real conversation, and I had this realization of, oh my gosh, I have a fear of doing another event. And I didn't know that it was still impacting me up until a couple of years ago, that event that happened 5 years ago and all of the stuff around, breaking up with my partner who had just cheated on me leaving a couple communities that, he was involved in, I guess me chopping my hair. I don't know if that was a traumatic thing, but, it's something that we do as women do sometimes when we're going through a big change. And then the vulnerability hangover of me doing my TEDx on trauma, and then me doing my event and those things that happen with that woman, like all of this pain or trauma or feelings of feeling rejected or attacked really came back up to the surface a couple of years ago when I was trying to get my shit together, in a very, direct way of saying it, and continue to do the things that I love to do, which is running live events. And that's when I had to face it. I had to face, oh shit, I have a fear of being seen and putting myself out there again because I have associated a trauma and pain around that time of my life when I did my very first live event in person. And so when I confronted it, that gave a lot of freedom, but it was still challenging. I still moved forward despite fear. We're going to talk a little bit about fear today. I'm going to read something to you that I posted on social media recently, and we're going to talk about fate versus destiny. Okay. So we'll dive into that in a moment. So what I did was I got real with, I have some programming, or, some beliefs right now that are causing me to not want to shine my light because I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt again. And the same thing that happened in the past is going to happen all over again. And I had to consciously tell myself, this is a different time. This is a different experience, and I'm going to create something new. And that was just an experience in my past. One of the biggest things that blocks us as humans, entrepreneurs, those of us that have things that we want to do in this life and evolve, is when we are stuck in our past energetically or emotionally, and we're not honest with ourselves and we're not taking the actions to move forward, we can consistently recreate the past in the present, and it can prevent us from taking radical action in our life. And I had to get real with myself about that. If I have a big fear of being out there because I feel like I'm going to get rejected and I'm going to have all this pain. So I had to confront it. And then I had to take conscious action to do things differently. And from doing that and getting honest with myself, having the fear and doing it anyways, I was able to run events that were successful. And I was on many different stages over the past couple of years. But there is a fear for a lot of people of being seen. And a lot of the time, it has to do with something from your past that's causing you to feel like it's not safe to be seen. I'm going to be rejected. I'm going to be hurt. No one's going to get me. No one's going to like me. All of the things. And the truth is, all of those things can happen when you are stepping into the spotlight. And that's something that I learned from doing my TEDx. I got up on stage and I shared a very vulnerable story around when I was 19, when I went through really big trauma for me at the time, and I shared it live on stage. And it impacted so many people in such a positive way, but also on the internet, it reached over 140,000 people. Despite all of the amazing comments and love that I also got a lot of hate. I got a lot of people picking me apart, and it really hurt my feelings at the time because I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't know that that's something that could happen, or a way that I could feel, or even that I would have a vulnerability hangover after doing a TEDx and being vulnerable like that on stage. So the biggest thing is, when you're putting yourself out there and when you have fear of being seen, you got to confront your fears, my friend. You got to know that the thing that you think is going to happen probably isn't going to happen. And if it does, that you're going to have your back no matter what. And fear is just an initiation to receive and access the gift on the other side. I did my very first speaking gig. I've talked about this already. 7 years ago, I wasn't ready. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I didn't even have a coaching business at the time, but I did it and I ripped off the Band-Aid. And because of that, now I've become an international speaker. And speaking on stage is one of the fastest ways to grow your influence, impact, and income in 2025 and beyond. And it's one of the primary ways that I've grown my business to where it is today. And being seen on stage, being seen in general, just has to do with you fully accepting yourself. You fully understanding that you're going to have fear and you can move forward anyways. And learning that and embodying that in my life, and knowing that fear is probably going to consistently show up for me as I level up, then I can have freedom in feeling the fear and knowing that fear is just an initiation that has a gift on the other side of it. And so if you are someone that's feeling called to speak, you're feeling called to be seen, you're feeling called to make a bigger impact in the world, it's important to know that you're never going to feel fully ready to do the thing. You're never going to have all your ducks in a row. You're going to have to show up messy and imperfect in order to grow. And when I think about that very first talk I did 7 years ago, my friends said I did a good job, but did I do a good job? I don't know. My friends said I did a good job, but I may not have, but it doesn't really matter. I started before I was ready, messy, not knowing exactly how it was going to pan out. And because of that, yes, years ago, so much has happened from there. And that is one of my mottos when I am leveling up, is fear is going to be there, and fear is an initiation that has a gift on the other side. So if you're dealing with fear, and you're here to be seen, and you want to grow your business, it's time for you to declare what it is that you want. This is the first step. Declare what it is that you want. Years ago, I declared I wanted to be an international speaker. Next thing you know, I get a phone call from a friend inviting me to speak at this event. I wasn't ready. I didn't feel qualified. I didn't even have my coaching business at the time. I didn't even know what I was going to talk about. But I said yes anyways, because this is how God works. This is how the universe works. When you ask for something and you decide it, you declare it, that energy is going to show up for you. And then it's your conscious choice. Am I going to take that step? Am I going to say yes to that opportunity? Am I going to jump into that program? Am I going to take the step even though I don't have everything figured out? And this is how the universe works. This is how manifestation works. You can have the dream, you can have the thought, and it can show up for you, but you have to take those courageous steps. And leaders take courageous steps all the time, and the universe and God rewards those of us that are courageous enough to back ourselves even when we have fear. And that's a big part of what this is really about, this conversation. So I was looking at the definition of fate earlier, and also destiny. So a lot of people will say, oh, it was fate. It was fate that this was going to happen. And fate essentially means, I'm actually just going to pull this up. Fate it implies a lack of control, or something is just going to happen no matter what. Like, this is just how things are. There's a lack of control in your life. If your parents struggled, you're going to struggle. If you've always been a certain way, you're going to always continue to be that way. Or if you always attract something, this is just, fate. It's out of your control. Whereas destiny suggests that there's a sense of purpose or direction that can be influenced by personal agency, aka you taking radical action, you confronting your fears, and you showing up anyways. Courage. That is courage. Destiny requires your courage. And how do we have courage? We move past our fears, even when we're feeling with them, even when we don't want to. And we trust in the vision. We trust in our desire. We trust in that higher intelligence that's saying, this is for me. This is what I want to do. I was in conversation with someone recently, actually, who I saw completely talk themselves out of their dreams. They had a conversation with me. They're talking about how they want to be a speaker. They want to do all these things. And then I talked to them a week later, and they literally talked themselves out of it. And I, in a very loving but potentially confrontational way, was like, hey, listen, you are showing up completely different than my conversation with you last week. What happened? And this person recognized within seconds that they were talking themselves out of their dream, and they had a fear that they may not be supported by a spouse for going after their dreams. So a lot of the reasons why we have fear of going after what we want is maybe we have a fear, you have a fear that something from the past is going to happen again. You know, I shared my story around my event and fear of being betrayed or hurt or, attacked if I'm in the spotlight. I had to work through my shit. It can also be that a fear that you're going to be rejected or not supported by someone close to you. This is a really big thing, especially in couples. Like, if I really do what I want, will my partner stay with me? Will they accept me? Is that okay? And this is where getting into the right environments, having the right support, and potentially the right mentor to support you into getting where you want to go is so important and can essentially guarantee your success if you're going to do the work. That's what I love about mentorship and working with someone who has what you want. It quickens the timeline between where you are and where you want to go. But also it can be, no one in my family has ever done XYZ. Who am I to do this? Who are you not to do this is the real question. One of the things that's worked really well for me with fear and also other people's projection, which is people's limitations that they've thrown on me. And this might be aligned for you and support you if you feel like a lot of people are telling you what you can't do. Anytime someone has told me I can't do something, for a long time in my life, I actually made it my mission to accomplish that thing. And, there's pros to that and there's cons to that. The pro is I would do the thing and prove people wrong, and I prove that I'm capable of having or doing the thing. The flip side of it is some of those things maybe I didn't truly want, and I was just trying to prove something. So when someone tells me I can't do something, I actually take that as evidence that I can and I must if I truly desire it. So I had something similar happen when I was writing my book. I had some projections from some people close to me around, you're going to write a book and da 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 da. And I was like, oh, wow, this is the universe reflecting some resistance and, projecting fear onto me, which I can choose, or I can choose differently and say, this is something I am more than capable of and I must do now that I have external resistance. And I did. And it's been an international best-selling book. I've had a lot of great feedback from it, and I've written 2 more books since then. One of the books is out. The other 2 are in process. So my friend, fear is just an emotion. And here's the thing, fear, not even fear, emotions only are supposed to last about a minute to a minute and a half. If you continue to feel an emotion and you make that an excuse for not taking the action in your life, you're recreating something over and over again, and fear grows when you don't take action. So if you want to move through fear of being seen or fear of doing the thing that you know that you're here to do, take massive inspired action. Decide what you want, declare it out loud, and then take massive inspired action to make it happen. And every single time I do that, I grow and fear becomes smaller. And that's really what this is about. And you can't have possibility or dreams and magic while you're holding on to fear and letting it control you. So I want to end today's conversation with something I posted earlier this week on Instagram. So I'm just going to pull it up right now and share it with you. It wouldn't scare you if it wasn't your next level, but it is, and it does, and that's normal. It's an invitation into an initiation and call for you to step into and become who you were born to be. You can resist the call and the initiation, and it will feel like a relief at first. But eventually, the call will come again, and the initiation will be there with it. The question is, are you willing and courageous enough to answer the call of your soul now? And know that on the other side of fear is your gift for humanity. Being seen and being called to speak on stages and become visible is an initiation that requires courage, vulnerability, and you fully backing yourself in your dreams. Fear is only your enemy if it controls your choices and blocks you from going all in on your dreams and life. On the flip side, if you feel it and take aligned action anyway, fear can be a powerful compass for action and your evolution. So if you are feeling called to move through fear and step into your destiny, be a conscious creator of your reality, and get your message out there. If you're a business owner or if you want to step into a space of influence and leadership, you have a message to share, and it's time for you to get out of the shadows and step into the spotlight. I would love to invite you to click on the link below and book a 30-minute call with myself or my team to see if our up-and-coming program is right for you. We are going to be specifically mentoring you on how to master your story, your talk, get booked on stages and podcasts, and blow up your impact, influence, and income in 2025 and beyond. Because speaking is one of the most powerful ways to build your business in 2025, and it's one of my favorite things. And if you're feeling called to speak, you're feeling called to get your message out there and share your story, I would love and be honored to share this process and this mentorship program with you. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. If you have, please go ahead and leave a review on Spotify or iTunes. And if you do, please go ahead and take a snapshot of the review and email it to us at hello@radicallyaligned.com to be entered into in our $2,000 program on Turn Your Light On, which is all about removing inner obstacles so that you can step into the light. And again, if you are interested on stepping into the spotlight this year, getting on stages, getting on shows, and really amplifying your message from mastering your talk and connecting it to your business, your offering, your service, your products, I would love to invite you into booking an illumination call with myself or my team with the link below. We start in March if you are listening when this episode comes out, but this is also a program that has many